What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Mega Master League. And I don't know what's more surprising, the fact that the Mega Master League actually works properly this season, or that I'm actually playing in the Master League. Now, I usually completely skip over the Master League every season because I just don't raid legendary Pokemon all that much. I think at most I've got about half the XL candies needed to power up something like a Palkia, but for most legendaries I genuinely have like 20 XL candies for them. However, I feel like the Mega Master League is ironically more accessible to play in for those of us that can't afford to build any legendaries. I say ironically because the power creep is even more extreme in this meta, with many Pokemon getting to 5,000 or even 6,000 CP and above, but I feel like you can counter these Pokemon with non-legendaries. Now in this video, I'm running a Shundo Mega Lucario, which has a much lower stat product than you'd probably think, and is actually slightly lower than both Florges and regular Gyarados, but despite that, its typing and its moveset is what makes it so strong in this meta. It completely bullies Mega Gyarados, which seems to be the most common Mega in this meta, and it also dominates Zacian Hero form in the 1 and 2 shield scenario, which is probably also the most common non-Mega in the meta. Gyarados and Florges are just two non-legendaries that I can actually afford to build, and I will say I would prefer to run Moonblast on the Florges over Disarming Voice for that harder hitting nuke potential up against Dragon types, and also I prefer to run Outrage on Gyarados so you can hit the Dragons a lot harder and have something to throw into Mega Gyarados, but I just don't have enough charge TMs to use at the moment. Anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What do you think is the most underrated Mega Pokemon to use in the Mega Master League? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Mega Lucario into Zacian. So like I mentioned in the intro, this is actually a positive matchup for me in the 1 and 2 shield scenario, as Mega Lucario will just barely outpace them to the charge boost. However, I'm not really familiar with the counts with Metal Claw and Close Combat. I genuinely like Zacian and Zamazenta are the only Pokemon that run Metal Claw as a fast move, and since I don't play in the Master League, I haven't really looked into how much energy it generates. So I'll swap out here. I wasn't sure if they get to a charge move, and they do. Turns out we're able to catch a Close Combat, which is resisted damage. And by the way, the thing that I like about Gyarados, as well as completely hard-warding Primal Groudon, it actually also has a pretty good matchup into Zacian because we can resist all the charge moves, at least the typical charge moves of Close Combat and Behemoth Blade. Now, unfortunately, this is where I'd love to have Outrage because I could hit for neutral damage, but I'm able to swap out, bank a lot of energy, catch an Aqua Tail there, which probably would have taken out our Gyarados from that range. They can go for another Aqua Tail here. You can see Florges does have decent bulk. We should live another Aqua Tail. However, our switch clocks are misaligned. The opponent can now swap back into Zacian, go for the snipe with the Metal Claw, but that's okay with me. We can come in with Lucario. They will reach another Close Combat, but I can safely shield up the charge move and then commit to a full Force Palm farm down. Now we're going to wait to see what comes back in. Probably going to be the Gyarados, and it is. Now, I did consider going for Power Up Punch straight away and then committing to a Force Palm farm down, but either way, we go for Aura Sphere, we get the KO, and they come in with a Palkia. They throw immediately, but they lose CMP. Lucario does huge damage with the Aura Sphere. That certainly puts them into range where a single Crunch from the Gyarados will get the KO, and we already have the Crunch locked and loaded, ready to throw into Palkia. Crunch does take out that Palkia, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to put that into next battle. I can see Mega Lucario into a Primal Groudon. So I have two better answers here. Of course, Florges is going to double resist the Dragon Tail damage and actually outpace them to the first charge route as well, whilst Chilling Water is also going to hit for double super effective, doing nearly half their HP. Now, the opponent is going to bank some energy, swap into Zacian. A bit interesting there that they would allow the Chilling Water to land, but either way, Chilling Water is going to connect up against a Zacian as well. At this point, even with that debuff, Behemoth Blade is still easily going to one-shot us, so we can come back in with Lucario. I'm happy to shield once and then commit to a full farm down, assuming they do go for a Close Combat, which they do, but then they swap out back into Groudon. We can come in with the Gyarados. Of course, Fire Punch is resisted, Precipice Blades is double resisted. Unless they're running something like Solar Beam, we can completely wall the energy here, but I'm going to fire off that Aqua Tail straight away, get rid of that Primal Groudon, and let's see what they want to do. They're unfortunately going to come in with a hard wall to Gyarados in the form of Primarina. Everything we throw here is going to be resisted. We're going to go for an Aqua Tail, not going to do much damage, but so far Lucario has not revealed its secondary charge move. I go for a Power Punch bait, and that is huge for me as the opponent ends up shielding there. I'm now going to shield a Hydro Cannon. The opponent swaps back into Zacian, but I'm boosted. I can go for a full farm down, coming out with so much loaded energy, and despite the fact that I am completely walled in terms of the damage, I've only got fighting type moves. It doesn't doesn't matter. Aura Sphere does huge damage once it's boosted. One more Force Palm, gets that farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, you see another Primal Groudon in the lead. So once again, swapping into Flourishes, and the opponent once again gonna stay in, allow me to reach a Chilling Water. Chilling Water is going to grab a shield this time around, and they are actually gonna fire off a Charge Move. Now, of course, I have just debuffed their attack. I'm still gonna shield anyways. They do bait with a Fire Punch, which is unfortunate, before swapping into a Togekiss. Now go for Chilling Water once again, debuffing their attack, and honestly, I should be fighting hard for switch advantage. I've got Gyarados in the back. I don't know why I don't shield that first move, as now I can go for another Chilling Water, debuff their attack once again, and honestly, this probably is a matchup where having Moonblast would be better for me, because the difference between the damage between Chilling Water and Disarming Voice isn't really big enough for me to go for Disarming Voice. If I threw Disarming Voice, it still wouldn't have got the KO, whereas Moonblast probably puts them into farm down range. But anyways, we come in with the Gyarados. I'm hoping Gyarados can beat whatever's in the back, but they're going to have a Dialga, and if we just flip switch advantage here, even being down a shield, I think this is a really good matchup for me. Lucario should be able to beat a Dialga, and of course Gyarados completely walls the energy up against this Groudon. You will see in this battle, however, I am going to play this out anyways, that a Precipice Blaze, despite the fact that it's double resisted, is still going to do quite a lot of damage to the Gyarados, but we can still tank that. We've got a lot of energy, we can commit to a full farm down, but it doesn't really matter. One Dragon Breath from the Dialga, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's up in there. Into the next battle, you see Mega Lucario once again into Zacian. So once again, a great lead matchup for me. We are going to see the opponent is this time not going to throw a Charge Move before we get to that Aura Sphere. And Aura Sphere is going to connect. It does huge damage. And now I'm just going to safely shield up the Charge Move. The opponent fires off the close combat before swapping into a Palkia. And this is still fine with me. I'm going straight for Aura Sphere once again. Aura Sphere gonna be no shielded. It does big damage. We're now going to come in with the Flourishes here, of course, going to resist the Spatial Rend, so they're forced to go for Aqua Tails. They don't do much damage. We're going to go for Disarming Voice. Of course, this is a matchup where Disarming Voice is actually useful for me, because the opponent probably not expecting the fairy damage there. I'm going to no-shield a Chilling Water, and as a result, I'm able to take that game. I don't know what was in the back. Probably a second Dragon-type Pokemon. Anyways, into the next battle. GG's to that trainer, by the way. The opponent's going to say swap into Flourishes, and this time, I don't really have a response. So I'm going to go for an Aura Sphere chip with that damage. That actually gets them into the yellow health range, which is quite nice for me. Unfortunately, I have a 14-15-15 Flourishes, so I will be losing CMP up against other Flourishes. Well, for the most part anyways, if they are running Hundos. Anyways, I'm going to fire off the Chilling Water here. Now I should be able to tank anything they can throw. And the opponent is going to full send the Moonblast this time before swapping into Dialga, but that's fine with me. I'm going to throw this just because then I will be able to swap out of this matchup, and I'm actually going to swap into my Gyarados, realizing Lucario is still going to have a really good time here up against both the Dialga and the Gyarados. But either way, I'm going to shield this first charge. I don't want to get too low to the point where actually maybe Lucario goes down with both shields still in play. To this point, we have got them very low. The opponent actually allowed me to reach an Aqua Tail. I feel like they should have got there, but either way, Aqua Tail will get the KO, and I will mention right now, apologies if you can hear some weird annoying noise in the background. Unfortunately, the neighbor above me seems to be doing some DIY, and they are using drills, saws, whatever the heck this noise is, and it is genuinely really annoying to listen to. Hopefully the microphone doesn't pick it up too much, but again, I am going to say apologies right now if you can hear it. But either way, we're going to shield the Aqua Tail. I'm now going to go for a Power Up Punch, recognizing that if the opponent wants to shield here, I'm going to boost up my attack, but I can still tank an Aqua Tail relatively comfortably, and it will allow me to go for a full Force Palm farm down. We get the farm down actually just barely, but we come out with the Aura Sphere loaded. They come back in with the Flourishes, and this will be enough damage to take out the Fairy-type Pokemon, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there. It probably sounds like there's like a mosquito in the room or something. That's what I'm comparing the noise to, if you can hear it. Either way, we're going to see a Mega Latios in the lead. That is really bad for me. I'm swapping into Gyarados, and I'm met with a Florges, and honestly, not looking too good for me so far, but I am going to shield the first charge move as they do full send a Moonblast. I recognize, of course, if they land the Moonblast there, they can start going for Chilling Water, which is not what I want. Now we're going to fire off an Aqua Tail. We can go for another Aqua Tail, and Gyarados, of course, we're not actually a Dragon-type Pokemon, so whilst Moonblast will hit for big damage, it's not quite going to get the KO. So I will no-shield this time around, and Gyarados able to reach another Arc Tail, and at least I can, of course, grab a shield back from the opponent, assuming the opponent is going to be fighting for switch advantage. Now there, I possibly could have fought hard for switch advantage, but I recognize Latios is going to just absolutely annihilate me if all shields are down. So now we come in with the Florges, and unfortunately we are just completely hard countered. There's not a lot I can do. I can go for Chilling Water. Chilling Water, not going to do much damage. It will debuff their attack, of course, but it just doesn't really help me at this point. They can go straight for that Behemoth Blade, getting the one-shot there. I recognize Lucario can't really do anything to that Latios, so I do just concede the match. But GG's up on there into next battle. You see Mega Gyarados in the lead. The opponent's going to say swap once again into Florges, and once again, I'm just going to chip with the Aura Sphere first. Guarantee I can maintain the alignment here, and as well, even of course, they do come back in with the Gyarados, my Florges still has a great matchup. So at this point, we shoot out the Moonblast, but they actually debuff my attack with a Moonblast, which is very interesting to see. They didn't even need to go for a Chilling Water for that, but either way, we can still no-shield this now that I've debuffed their attack. The opponent is going to go for another Moonblast before swapping into a Zacian. So here, I'm going to fire off the Chilling Water, and then I'm actually going to swap into my Gyarados, realizing Gyarados resists the typical charge moves from the Zacian. The opponent is going to go ahead and fire off a close combat immediately, which means this Aqua Tail is going to do quite a lot of damage. Now, Aqua Tail is going to connect there. A second Aqua Tail should be getting the KO, and I can actually outpace them there. I actually don't know if I did outpace them or if they're maybe committing to a Behemoth Blade this time around, but either way, they're going to bank a ton of energy. That does make sense, but likewise, I can swap bank the energy, catch a crunch onto Lucario there, which is unfortunately going to debuff my defense this time around. But either way, we can still shield this up here. I should be able to commit to a farm down. Actually, no, never mind. We're going to go for a Power Punch here. Just make that farm down a lot easier for me. Power Punch puts them into 2 Force Palm farm down range. Remember, they did bank a move on the Zacian, but it doesn't really matter. We can come back in with the Gyarados. They go for close combat once again, which means, of course, they're debuffing their defense. I can outpace them to back-to-back Aqua Tails before they get to back-to-back charge moves here. So Aqua Tail is going to grab that final shield. We can go for another Aqua Tail, and remember, Florges does have a Disarming Voice locked. Actually, no, never mind. It wasn't quite locked and loaded, but we do get there in time. Disarming Voice takes out the opposing Florges, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You see Mega Lucario once again into Mega Gyarados. So, great matchup for me. Opponent say swaps into Landorus. I'm actually not really sure why I didn't come in with Gyarados. I guess the threat of a Stone Edge did kind of make me panic, and I just swapped into Florges, realizing I can, of course, just no shield here. I can go for a Chilling Water. If I grab a shield advantage, that should still be okay for me, because I am recognizing that a lot of teams do pair Gyarados and Zacian together, in which case, if I have a shield advantage, Mega Lucario can absolutely pop off. But anyways, we go for Chilling Water. Once again, you can see that's not going to do much damage at this point, but they actually swap out into Zacian. So at this point, we're, of course, going for that Chilling Water. Once again, recognizing Gyarados going to resist the charge moves here, so we might as well bring it in, as, of course, our Gyarados isn't going to do very well into their own Gyarados, as they do have the Mega. They will resist the Aqua Tail and the Crunch, but either way, we are going to go ahead and fire off the Aqua Tail. This time, they didn't go for close combat, so you can see Aqua Tails don't really do that much damage, but they will add up over time. So Aqua Tail, number 2, is going to be no-shielded. They can now swap back into Gyarados, so I'm able to swap into Mega Lucario, and I still don't need to use any shields just yet. Aqua Tail is going to do decent damage there, but Dragon Breath, they are resisted. I'm full sending the Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere gets the KO there. They're going to come back in with the Landorus. They can fire off that Sandsear Storm immediately. There's a bit of a tongue twister, but I can still go for an Aura Sphere, and despite being resisted and debuffed, it forces the final shield. We've got the Aqua Tail loaded on the Gyarados, so we snipe. Aqua Tail takes out the Landorus. They come back in with the Zacian, and Gyarados again just so spammy, reaching yet another Aqua Tail, taking out that Zacian, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. You see Mega Lucario into a Primal Kyogre. Now, honestly, I don't have a great response to Primal Kyogre. I swapped into my better answer there, which is probably a mistake there. I mean, if Florges maybe had Trail Blaze, then maybe I'd be okay. But yeah, unfortunately, don't have a great response to Primal Kyogre. Even Gyarados doesn't do that well, just because Kyogre is so hard with those waterfalls. Anyways, we're going to no-shield here. Once again, recognizing Gyarados can take the charge shoots, unless they're running something like Play Rough, which would be very interesting. But Gyarados might actually reach another Aqua Tail here before they can fully farm me down. It's going to be very close, but Gyarados does actually get there in time. Now, what I'm hoping to do is snipe with one Force Palm on my Lucario, Lucario, but unfortunately they are able to react just in time there, so that was kind of pointless. Basically, just meant that I'm switch locked with my Lucario now, but they come back in with that Kyogre. I fire off the Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere is going to be no shielded by the opponent. I'm now going to shield because otherwise I don't feel like I can take out this Kyogre. I'm just not going to be able to output enough damage, but maybe that's not the right play because now they can actually still no shield a power-up punch, get a simultaneous KO, and they've got Necrozma in the back, and there's just nothing Florges can do here, unfortunately. I can go for a debuff with the Chilling Water. I can't remember what, Sunsteel Strike, I think that's the signature move. I tried to swap out Catch a Move there, doesn't work out for me. The opponent is going to fire off the charge move. They actually are running Iron Head rather than Sunsteel Strike. Doesn't really matter, they can reach a second move here. You can see Chilling Waters, they just wouldn't do much damage to the opponent, able to take me out there, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into next battle. You see another Primal Groudon in the lead. So we say swap into Florges. And again, they're going to stay in, allow me to reach a Chilling Water. I think maybe they just forgot about this community day. We had it like a few days ago. But anyways, they're going to swap out. And no, actually, they stay in because they are core broken by the Florges. We hold on to the energy. That is huge for me. They can Alpha off an Aquatail. I don't really care. It's not going to do much damage. I'm then going to overfarm here. And of course, the opponent probably not expecting Disarming Voice. So we do get there a little bit faster. Obviously, if I was running Moonblast, I could have thrown one charge move and then committed to a full farm down, but either way, we can still go for a Chilling Water as they come back in with that Groudon, debuff their attack there. The opponent is going to fire for charge move, and this is fine with me. I can just safely no shield this Fire Punch, gets the KO, but we can come in with the Gyarados, wall the energy. They come in with a Zygarde, so I'm going to bank a ton of energy, swap into Lucario. This is enough energy for an Earthquake, so I will be shielding, respecting the damage, and it is the Earthquake. This part I'm going to farm up to very close to back-to-back Aura Spheres. First one is going to be no shielded by the opponent, and we reach a second one on the Simpy tie with that next Earthquake. Aura Sphere is going to be no shielded. They come back in with the Groudon, and this is certainly game over. Fire Punch will be enough damage to take out Lucario, but Gyarados was just one Dragon Breath away from back-to-back Aquatails. First one, the opponent actually not going to bother shielding. They recognize there's nothing they can do, and so we're able to take out Primal Groudon, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into next battle. You see another Primal Kyogre. Once again, we swap into our Gyarados, and again, we're met with Zacian. So, this is probably going to be a pretty common pairing. I'm going to farm up to 100 energy before throwing this time around. Behemoth Blade, can't really tell how much damage that did because we don't actually see it, but we are going to grab a shield there with the Aquatail. Because I farmed up so much, I guess maybe the opponent expecting potentially a Hydro Pump, but either way, Aquatail is not going to do much damage there. Even Hydro Pump probably didn't warrant a shield there, but either way, Aquatail is going to grab a shield in the first instance. We can now put them into farm down range for my Lucario. They fire off the close combat. They swap back into Primal Kyogre. So once again, I am going straight for Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere gonna be no shielded. It doesn't do that much damage up against the Kyogre, but we do still have some play here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for a power-up punch, expecting the opponent to shield. Last time, didn't really work out for me, but this time they do shield, so do slightly more damage, but I don't quite put them into farm down range. However, Gyarados is very close to a charge move, so we're going to come in with the Gyarados. They don't get the KO, but they do swap out. They make that catch. They swap into a Zamazenta, and unfortunately, Florges not going to be able to do much here. They, of course, are going to take neutral damage from the Fairy typing. I can go for a Chilling Water, and this should allow me to live a Behemoth Bash here, but still not really going to help that much. They are on Ice Fang, by the way, so that is good. Of course, we are taking neutral damage from the fast moves, but you're going to see even a Disarming Voice, neutral damage, stab, doesn't really do much there. They can come back in with the Zacian, go for that Metal Claw farm down, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle, and we see a Mega Garchomp in the lead. Now, maybe I could have stayed in, wait to see what fast move they had, but I swap out straight away, and it does work out for me as they are on Mud Shot. So, of course, we are double resisting the fast move damage. I'm going to shield anyways. Could be a breaking swipe, but nope, they full send the Outrage there. And I'm not going to throw on the best timing. I think I threw on alignment this time around. But Aquatail is once again going to be no shielded. The fact they're staying in means that maybe they are weak to Gyarados. So I'm actually going to double shield the Gyarados. And it works out perfectly as the opponent has a Rhyperior in the back. I'm going straight for Aquatail. They can still afford to no shield there, which is kind of crazy since that is double super effective. But we go for another Aquatail. Aquatail going to be shielded. I'm now going to swap, and I'm hoping I've just caught a double resisted Rock Wrecker onto Lucario, and I'm able to do exactly exactly that, get that Force Palm farm down, but they're going to have a final Pokemon in Shadow Ho-Oh, so they are triple weak to that Gyarados, which is why I did try to preserve the health there. We actually grab a shield, the opponent may be expecting a Thunder Punch, which wouldn't do that much damage, I guess, as it is non-stab, but it is Mega Lucario. But anyways, we're going to come in with the Flourishes, and I should be able to tank one charge move. It's not going to be that comfortable for us, and actually, 2 more Incinerates will get the full farm down, but I can fire off a Chilling Water. Chilling Water is going to connect, and the opponent opts for that extra Incinerate, not anticipating the snipe, and as a result, Aqua Tail gets the KO. We can Dragon Breath, farm down Mega Garchomp, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on that into next battle to see a Mega Gyarados in the lead once again. So, once again, great lead matchup for me. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into Togekiss, so I will respond with my Floriges. Now, I did see this sort of scenario a few times where the opponent safe swaps into a Fairy type and they actually had a Zacian in the back. So maybe what I should be doing here is not really caring too much about switch advantage, but just making sure Lucario does have shields in play, because Lucario is going to be the most important Pokemon here. Once we do get rid of their Fairy type that does resist Fighting type damage, Lucario should be very good to sweep in the end game. But anyways, they are going to allow me to reach another Chilling Water. We get the KO. We are down a shield. I can now debuff them here, and I think I will just allow them to fully farm me down. I don't want to switch lock myself, so I'm going to allow that full farm down. Once again, realizing Gyarados can just sponge up the damage from the charge moves, as they are going to go straight for a close combat. They're now going to swap back into Mega Gyarados, and I am going to be slightly outpaced, but that's okay. I can live a charge move. The opponent fires off the Aqua Tail. I'm anticipating they're probably going to shield, so I go for a power-up punch, and we do grab a shield from the opponent. This one, I can definitely just shield this time around and then commit to a full Force Palm farm down. And we do get that farm down there. Now, here, I should probably just go straight for Aura Sphere. I'm going to bait with a power-up punch, and the opponent calls the bait there. It really doesn't do much damage. They can now shield this charge move, but power-up punch, you're going to see Metal Claws actually putting me into a single fast move farm down range. I come in with Gyarados at the last second. They get to Behemoth Blade there, and Gyarados not able to Dragon Breath farm them down. What have I done here? Close combat gets the KO, and because they got a 2-turn fast move, they do get that fast move farm down, and somehow, even though I was in a great position, baiting with that power-up punch ends up costing me that game. But GG's to that trainer into next battle. We're going to see Zamazenta in the lead, so this is a really positive matchup for me. Of course, both Pokemon are the same typing, but we've got super effective fast move damage whilst they're running Ice Fang, which is of course resisted. I can shield up a close combat. The opponent is now going to be swapping into Primal Kyogre, so of course we have seen this a few times. Kyogre is very problematic for the team, but I go for Aura Sphere. Now I swap into Gyarados. With that chip damage from Mega Lucario, we have actually put them into range where we can fast move farm them down with the rest of my team. Now the opponent is going to farm up a ton of energy. They're actually on Blizzard there, which does get the KO, but that uses all of their energy pretty much. So we can come in with the Flourishes, and I should be able to go for a Fairy Wind farm down, and we do come out with a decent amount of energy. They come back in with the Zamazenta. I'm going straight for Chilling Water here. Chilling Water, not going to do much damage, but once again, of course, Disarming Voice also not quite going to get the KO from that range, so I might as well just debuff their attack in the process. We're actually going to grab the shield there, so this fight, they must be weak to the Flourishes in the back, so I will be shielding a Behemoth Bash. The opponent is going to allow a full farm down there, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Palkia, so that's why they did not swap out. Disarming Voice does just over half the HP. We get to a second Disarming Voice already. Disarming Voice number 2 takes out that Palkia, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on their Ethernext battle. You can see Palkia in the lead this time around. So this is a fine matchup for me. Maybe I should be swapping out eventually, because I do kind of want to save my Lucario in case they have any Steel-type Pokemon or like a Mega Gyarados in the back. But since we're seeing Palkia, Palkia and Mega Gyarados are fairly similar, so maybe that wouldn't make too much sense to have Palkia in the lead and a Mega Gyarados. But either way, I do swap into my own Gyarados. Eventually, they go for Spatial Rend before swapping into a Kyurem. So this is interesting to see. Of course, I'm expecting them to have Fusion Bolt. Fusion Bolt is going to hit for double super effective damage here, but they will allow me to reach a Crunch and an Aqua Tail. If I committed to a second Crunch there, they probably look to throw it on CMP. However, we do get off that chip damage. The opponent has now farmed up to back-to-back charges, I believe. They go for Fusion Bolt there, but we can come in with Lucario, and we put them into Fairy Wind farm down range. The opponent fires off the Fusion Bolt. We come in with the Florist, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Dragon Tail Primal Groudon, so we still have play here. We go straight for Chilling Water. Chilling Water does just under half their HP, so I'm definitely going to shield the first charge move. They probably bait with a Fire Punch, and they do exactly that, but we can now overfarm fire off a second Chilling Water, and what this should now allow me to do is tank a Precipice Blades. The opponent is, of course, going to start using that final shield. We've got no shields remaining. Precipice Blaze does big damage still, but we do tank it. They swap back into Palkia. I tried to farm to back-to-back charge moves, and I just completely lost track of their energy. If we threw one fast move sooner, I think we just win that game there, because Kieran was in range where I could just fast move farm them down, and I would leave pretty much with a Chilling Water loaded regardless. So unfortunately, I do lose that game. A very winnable matchup, but GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, we're going to see an opposing Florist. I swap straight away into mine, and I recognize straight away I'm going to lose CMP. They're actually running Trailblaze here, which is very interesting to see. I don't know if they're running Trailblaze and Moonblast, or Trailblaze Disarming Voice, or Trailblaze and Chilling Water. Honestly, don't have a clue yet, but either way, they're going to boost up their attack. This time, I go for Disarming Voice, and that actually does decent damage there. At this point, I'm going to shield, and the opponent is probably once again going to go for a Trailblaze, so now I'm going to farm out to back-to-back Chilling Waters, recognizing I will lose CMP now, so I think if the opponent does shield here, I'm going to swap back into Lucario, get a Force Palm through as I swap out there, and catch a resisted Trailblaze. Now, the opponent comes in with a Primal Groudon, not ideal for Lucario, but we can hit for neutral damage, and I am resisting the fast moves as well, so we deal big damage there with that Aura Sphere. The opponent farms up to back-to-back Fire Punches, so definitely no point in shielding. Fire Punch gets that KO. But now I can just wait out my switch shot, come in with my Gyarados, completely resist the charge moves. Let's see what the opponent wants to do. The opponent is going to fire off a Precipice Blades that does less than half our HP, which is still crazy for a ground type charge move. But anyways, I'm now going to overfarm just a little bit, fire off that Aquatel. They come back in with the Florist, and I am just going to commit to a full farm down using my final shield here. Looks like Gyarados is going to be fairly useful in the end game, and they've got a Palkia in the back. So this is still going to be really close. We go for Crunch. Crunch actually drops their defense. That is huge for me. Now I'm going to try and snipe with Disarming Voice. They have already seen Disarming Voice, however, so they do end up shielding. The opponent fires off the Aquatel. We are very close to the Crunch. The opponent not quite able to swap out just yet. So Crunch is going to connect. They're debuffed. It does big damage. They swap out. They clear the debuff. But Gyarados gets more farm and just barely reaching an Aquatel. This is double resisted, but it takes out the Palkia, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to open there into the next battle. Once again, going to see a Zacian in the lead. So, good lead matchup for me. Looks like the opponent might have lagged at the start there, but actually kind of hard to tell because maybe they've caught up. I genuinely don't know. But either way, I'm going to shield this as they fire off the close combat. Then I'm going to swap into Primal Groudon. And you might be wondering, why do I throw here? I've got Gyarados in the back, which completely destroys it. Well, a single Aquatel actually doesn't quite get the one-shot, and it is quite an uncomfortable Dragon Breath farm down since Dragon Breath doesn't do as much damage this season. But now, we can come in with that Gyarados, fire off the Aquatel. This is going to grab a shield from the Groudon, and the opponent is going to fire off another charge move. The opponent goes for Precipice Blades. Gyarados just barely hanging on there, able to reach the Aquatel. Aquatel is going to grab the final shield. Now, Lucario is already really loaded on energy, but I couldn't remember if they had a charge move loaded there, so I'm actually just going to play it safe, shield this up as they fire off that Fire Punch. Then they swap back into Zacian, but that's fine with me. They catch an Aura Sphere. That puts them into Force Palm farm down range, and let's see what their final Pokemon is. The opponent waiting out that switch clock. They are going to come in with a Kyurem, and we can go straight for the Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere does massive damage. One more Force Palm gets that farm down. The opponent recognizing there's nothing Groudon can do anymore, so they just concede the match. So, GG's up on there into the next battle, another Primal Kyogre in the lead. So, once again, swapping into our only real response in Gyarados, and they've got a Primarina here, so this is not ideal for me just yet, but we can fire off an Aquatel. Of course, we are very spammy, so if the opponent does overfarm a bit in this matchup, maybe we can grab a shield advantage or something. I don't know. Either way, 3 Aquatels will be reached before they do throw a charge move of their own, but unfortunately, it still doesn't really help me that much. The opponent is finally going to fire off a charge move. They farmed up very close to back-to-back charge moves here. I actually swap out into my Lucario as it didn't quite get the KO, but maybe that backfires as they do fire off that Hydro Gun. They swap back into into Primal Kyogre, and here surely they do shield this first charge move, so we bait with that power up punch, and maybe that's going to allow me to reach a boosted Aura Sphere, and maybe they think it's another power up punch, so Aura Sphere is unfortunately shielded, and that's just pretty much game over. I don't think there's much I can do now. We can come in with the Florages. They are very close to back-to-back Surfs already. I'm going to shield the first one. I'm then going to go for one extra Fairy Wind swap, catch the move onto my Gyarados. Maybe we've still got a slither of hope here, but the opponent is now going to swap back into Primarina, and here I throw a charge move. What am I doing? I undercharge this fully, but look at how much HP they've got. I could have just committed to a full farm down. That's what I needed to do there. Even if I did throw a charge move, maybe should have gone for a Chilling Water to debuff their attack, and actually since it's resisted and non-stab, maybe that would have still given me more farm. But either way, Kyogre fires off the Surf. I don't know what they had in the back there. Maybe Florages could have swept that game if I played better. But anyways, GG's to that trainer, and into possibly the final battle of this video. The opponent's going to lead with that Mega Gyarados, swapping into Zacian, and this was actually one of the first battles I did. They fire off the close combat, and honestly, I just don't know the counts for Zacian. I really should have looked into it before doing these battles, but I was just so excited to try out Mega Lucario. So here they reach back-to-back close combats. I thought I was getting that farm down there. Now at this point, we've only shown the power-up punch, so I am just going to full send an Aura Sphere. Probably should have just gone straight for the power-up punch once again there, but either way, I should be grabbing both shields in this matchup. And maybe they're triple weak to Lucario, so I do swap out there, and they actually are. They've got a Kyurem in the back. So at this point, we farm up, we fire off Disarming Voice. Of course, Moonblast would be doing much more damage in this matchup, potentially puts them into farm down range, but because, of course, I am stuck on Disarming Voice, I need a second one to get the KO, but they do land the Freeze Shock, I think that's what it's called. So we're both just not going to attack here, but I can snipe with the Gyarados. But I don't know if that really helps me. Again, I don't have Outrage, so unfortunately, I can only throw resisted charge moves here. Arcratel doesn't do much damage. They can fire off a charge move. The opponent is going to go for an Outrage, which doesn't actually KO there. I don't know if maybe they undercharged that. Kind of confusing. That feels like it should KO up against a regular Gyarados. But anyways, what I'm going to do is hopefully allow myself one Force Palm, and that should put them into Arcratel range here for my Gyarados. Can we get there in time? Just barely. So despite the fact that I completely messed up that mid-game matchup up against Zacian, I still come out on top. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.